Living here in Apple Valley, California, near the Mojave Desert, we've heard so many stories about the Mohave Megaphone.
The Mohave Megaphone.
Of the mysterious Mohave Megaphone.
The Mohave Megaphone.
So we just had to go for ourselves and see what it's all about. The location is no secret. In fact, you can find it on Google Earth or Google Maps. But that's the easy part. The hard part is getting through all the dirt roads to get there, as well as figuring out what exactly it does. So we're taking our truck up Interstate 15 and then out approximately 20 miles on dirt roads to see if we can find the Mohave Megaphone. Thankfully, it's only a couple of hours from our house. So, here we are. Now just a short hike up this mountain. Located in a remote area of the Mojave National Preserve, or actually technically right outside of it, is this, the Mohave Megaphone. A rusty hunk of metal permanently embedded to the rocks below it. No one has ever truly been able to identify what this thing actually is or what it does. Some even call it the Sentinel Enigma. The northern alignment of this megaphone actually points at a rocky outcropping a long ways away here that's actually got some old petroglyphs from Native Americans that used to live here about 100 to 200 years ago. So what exactly is the Mohave Megaphone? Well, there's a number of theories, but we'll boil it down to just a few. So the first theory is that this is a measuring device or a pointer tool of some form. This is actually in close proximity to Edwards Air Force Base, where they used to do a lot of sound barrier testing or experimentation back in the day. Think Chuck Yeager. So the thought is that this might have been measuring some form of sound barriers type of stuff. The rumor also says that this could be pointing to an underground cave system that's 303 miles long and has a quote-unquote river of gold in it. This was actually first reported in the San Bernardino Sun and the Los Angeles Evening Herald in the early 1930s, so it goes back quite a ways. Whether that's true? I don't know. A second and less popular opinion, but one that I've come across while doing research, is that this is part of an old pipeline that used to run through this area, and that this is actually something called a flow Venturi meter, or a Venturi flow meter. And what that means is that it's gonna measure the flow of the stuff that's going through the pipeline. Problem is, there's nothing else throughout this area or no other remnants of any other pieces of pipeline. The third and one of the more likely scenarios for this thing is that it was actually used to amplify a siren that was placed in one end or the other, even in the center. See, back in the 40s and 50s, the United States Army was doing chemical weapons testing just south of here in the open desert. And what would happen is that there was a rail system that you can still see the remnants of here in the valley behind me, and that would actually take chemical weapons into the area. They would use this siren, or the siren inside of this megaphone, to amplify sound to let the troops know south of here that the train was coming and that they needed to suit up. It's even known that in this area, they tested things such as mustard gas, chlorine gas, cyanide gas, as well as phosphine gas. The only detractor to this theory is that this doesn't look like any sort of siren from back in the 40s and 50s. As we know, back in that age, sirens were actually shaped with a rectangular shaped horn, so this really doesn't fit that theory completely. Still possible. Now the fourth theory, and I think the most likely that this actually is part of something called the Mohave Megaphone Experiment of 1932. The problem with this theory is that it's not very widely known, and trying to find information about this on the internet is hard. That's because there's nothing on it about the internet. The only thing I could find are some vague references to files, as well as references to the testing in very basic form. And it basically would use megaphones like this to amplify basic human-like voice and sounds across long distances. We're talking miles without any use of electronics to amplify those signals. And if this were true, then that would explain why there's no extra pipelines or anything inside of here, because all it was doing was passively amplifying the sound. We can tell this because if you go on the other end here, hello, can you hear me? Is this loud? And lastly, this could all just be a prank or even an art exhibit. It's kind of a random spot for a prank or an art exhibit, though, to be completely honest. So we may never know the exact truth, but I'm going with the Mohave Megaphone Experiment of 1932 just because that seems the most likely and easiest to explain. Although it could always be aliens, but you never know. So what do you think? What do you think the megaphone is? Go ahead and put it in the comments below. I'd love to hear your opinions and your thoughts on this pretty cool piece of metal that's out here in the middle of the desert. If you want to visit this and see it for yourself in person, I put some directions down in the comments below in general. I'm sure there's more than one way to come visit this place, but it was not easy and it still took a few hours. Lots of dirt roads, lots of sand, and some times where I thought I might have gotten stuck. So please be careful if you come out here and have a plan. Also, make sure to subscribe down below if you haven't already. We have a lot of fun content just like this coming out over the next couple months. Thanks, guys, and we'll see you next time.